Hey there YouTube, welcome back to the channel. So doing another hobby roundup video, very similar to the last couple of weeks. Formatting concept is going to stay about the same. The only difference is that this week, obviously, the national is the main thing. So there isn't really a ton in terms of hobby headlines. So I think a lot of the focus this time around is going to be on content. Obviously, there's going to be an avalanche of it with the national coming out. And we're no exception because even though I'm not going to the national, on the Friday live stream, we're going to be talking a little bit about it for sure. And definitely between myself and I think Bobby's going to be joining me as well, once again. And we're going to be chatting about different vlogs and different things we've seen, getting some impressions. And also, I do know some folks that are going to the national, so I'm going to reach out and try to get their impressions a little bit as well to provide that perspective, in addition to obviously the deluge of content that's going to be out there talking about it in general. So that's always kind of a fun part of this, even if you can't go to the show itself. It's fun to live vicariously through a lot of the content and see things through the prism of different people's perspectives. So that is kind of an enjoyable aspect of it, at least for me. Now, there is a ton of it, so I'm certainly not going to even touch on a fraction of a percentage of the content that's out there. And we're a couple of days in now, and there was obviously the vlogs that came out with the previews and things like that, you know, the day zeros and things of that sort. And I've gotten a chance to watch a fair bit of that, and I expect there to be more as it starts to come in greater quantities as more and more people head over to the show. We're a couple of days in, so there's definitely been a fair bit of it out there. So I'm going to direct your attention to a couple of specific ones at the beginning of this, and then I will touch on a couple of, I guess, hobby stories, so to speak, but they're a little bit smaller than usually you would get on most hobby weeks, but it's going to be more reflective of just announcements and things at the national, things that are just coming up in this past week. So let me show this one first. So this one is from Mojo Sports. So I know a lot of hobby friends that don't enjoy the type of content that Mojo Sports or those guys do, but that's what makes it funny for me, because I'm really agnostic when it comes to that. I don't care. I don't have a stake in it. What I'm interested in is whether the content provides some kind of a perspective or an interest in it. What I will say with this one is that in this particular one, the National Sports Collector Convention 2021 preview walkthrough, it basically was exactly what it sounds like. It was about a half-hour walkthrough of the show floor, and that's the part that was interesting to me. So I'll actually play a little snippet of this for you. You won't be able to hear the audio because I've got it set up so that the microphone is providing the audio only, but I'll click on it just for a second. And what happens is they go around to, you've got the cameraman, and here, this guy right here, the Mojo Sports guy, his name escapes me, I'm sorry, but he walks around the show floor a little bit and starts walking up and down the aisleways. It's hardly exhaustive because the show floor is massive, but walking around, talking to a couple of folks here and there and kind of making his rounds, it does give you a little bit of perspective as you start walking through some of the different aisles, and gives you at least a small perspective and sense of how big that show is. And like I said, even though it's a fraction, it's a little bit of a taste, it still gives you a little bit of perspective. And, you know, they do show some showcases in it as they do walk around the floor and chat up different folks. Like I said, it's about half an hour long, so if you're not interested in a longer version of that, you can check out some of the other folks who did much quicker walkthroughs or did the big panning shots. But I did think it was interesting for perspective to have one where somebody was at least walking around with the camera a little bit on the show floor with people there and with some of the dealers already doing some business and doing some work, as opposed to a lot of the sneak preview ones where you're just walking the show floor when the place is empty. So walking around, chatting with some folks. So that's kind of what makes that interesting. So this next one here is from somebody who's been on the channel before. So Victor, the rookie card specialist. So I wanted to feature this one because this is him as a veteran collector taking his perspective of the National as a first-time attendee and checking it out. So this is his first impressions of the National day one. So I just wanted to feature it on here. Now that, like I said, there's going to be tons and tons and tons of vlogs like this for different folks. But I just thought it'd be kind of fun to have Victor on here because he is somebody whose content I enjoy in general. So I think it's going to be interesting to get his perspective of it as a guy who focuses on the rookie card and is around to talk to people as well and wants to get some different information and do a little bit of networking. This is going to be the show from his perspective. So like I said, I want to offer different versions, different perspectives. Mojo Sports does a lot more of the dealing and talking to different folks related to that. But then Victor here is going to be focusing in a little bit more collector perspective, as well as trying to network and try to get some information in addition to enjoying the National itself. So like I said, you can pretty much pick your favorite content creator, and you're going to be able to get all kinds of perspective from them, in addition to some of these other ones. All these things that I'm mentioning here, I will include links to it in the description so you can check it out for yourself. Do check out Victor's channel. It's very well done. Mojo Sports, I don't really enjoy all of his videos, but I do enjoy some of them where he does walk around the card shows a little bit, and it does give you a dealer's perspective as well. So it's one of those things. It's a bit of a balancing act to try to get different perspectives. It also kind of depends on what you enjoy. So like I said, if you do have some favorites, you might want to focus on those, and you can always check these out at your leisure. One more that I'll include in here doesn't actually have a show vlog yet, but from what I understand, he's going to be attending the show show, but I wanted to recommend it to you if you hadn't heard of him, is Breakout Cards. And part of the reason for it is he's a young guy, so he's definitely got that perspective going forward. He is more of a dealer, so he does do a little bit of back and forth with different things. He does have a little bit more of an appreciation for vintage, which is kind of cool because I did cut my teeth on vintage. But part of the reason why I wanted to recommend him to you is if he does do some show vlogs, and if this Iowa card show one here that I've got here, I'll actually click on it for a second here and show you. If this is any indication, the editing is on point. So let me back up here a little bit just so you can see. So there's a lot of B-roll, a lot of talking to different people and showing. And what I enjoyed about it is that he's done a really good job. I'm just going to zip around a little bit for you. Is that they do a really good job cutting it together and putting together a cohesive, narrative story in a video, and basically being able to show him going around the show. So if this Iowa one is any indication, I would expect that any videos they do coming out of the national should be very well done. The editing should be on point for the most part. So that's kind of what I think should be interesting. I'll just bring it to your attention if you want to check it out. So it is Breakout Cards. Okay, for the next couple here, I'm actually going to talk about, I guess I'll call them stories. Really, it's relatively minor stuff in terms of the relative scheme of the hobby stories, but I'll still talk about them because there's certainly a couple of things happening here. So PWCC announced just yesterday that they had a record $4.3 million sale. So basically they helped broker a private sale of the 2017 National Treasures NFL Shield Patrick Mahomes rookie, the 1/1, to LJ's Card Shop. And part of the reason I bring it up is that it is, anything, a big sale of multi-millions of dollars is still newsworthy-ish, although I've mentioned before, I think it becomes less so as we go forward, as that becomes more common with a lot of these cards. But nonetheless, it is the highest sale of a football card ever. It is not a fractional sale, so it is a sale. It was a brokered sale, which is fine. So that's good. And then the other aspect of it that I thought was interesting is that this card, if you do pay attention to vlogs, like I mentioned earlier, you will be able to see this card because I have already seen in a couple of vlogs, folks have made the trek over to check it out. And that's one of those things where if you do notice it, that'll be part of the reason why some people are going out of their way to check it out. So like I said, PWCC, $4.3 million on this Patrick Mahomes NFL Shield. Okay, this next one here, second to last, is actually a follow-up from last week's where I mentioned to you that a T206 Honus Wagner SGC3 was going up for sale over Robert Edwards Auctions. So the auction is underway. The starting bid was $1 million. It's got 18 bids already. And as you can see on the screen here, the bid is already exceeded now $4 million. Now, I'm not going to go through this every single week, but I did feel like it was worthwhile an update because now the auction has actually started, and it's going to continue through the middle of August, so August the 15th at 9 p.m. Eastern time is when the auction ends. So we've still got plenty of time, certainly. That's why I say if I do another video, another update next week, I'm not going to bring up the card again until we're closer to the end. But nonetheless, a $4 million plus sale is still a big deal. Like I mentioned with the Mahomes, it is becoming a lot more commonplace. But nonetheless, this is obviously an iconic card. So the reality is, given that it's a pretty clean copy of an iconic card, I'd be curious to see if this one isn't potentially by the time it's all said and done, the new standard bearer in terms of the highest priced card in the hobby. And that's where it's going to become really interesting to see if this becomes the biggest sale, at least from an auction perspective. Like I said, the private sales, I almost want to put them into their own separate category. And the fractional, I already did a whole video and discussion about this. But from a strictly auction format, this could very well be one of the highest ones by the time it's all said and done. Still plenty of time left on it. We'll have to see if enough big spenders are already in on this. It could very well be a big finish on this one because we're already at 4 million with over 17 days left. So this will be one that I'll kind of have in the back of my mind and keep an eye on it as we go along. And I'll give updates a couple of weeks down the road when we're closer to the conclusion of this one. All right, this last one is technically national-ish related because it was announced at the National during a presentation, but this is really not much of a story, and I'll explain why in a second, but it's a little more self-indulgent for me. So Upper Deck has announced that they are going to be doing AEW cards in this fall here, so it looks like it's tentatively late October, early November. And part of the reason I say it's not really news-ish is because, as Beckett correctly mentions here, again, everything that I mentioned in this video, I am going to include links in the description so you can check it out for yourself as well. They do mention here that the rumors had been going for a while, and frankly, I considered it a done deal, but I was waiting. Last November, they showed in this vlog here that they're referencing, so being the Elite, in this vlog, episode 229, they actually had them signing, the stickers. And that's what made me laugh is that was all the way back last November that they basically showed their cards, so to speak, to be able that there were going to be cards at some point. And I just found it very funny that it took this long. We had to wait until the National for Upper Deck. Well, now it's official. Now they are going to be releasing a product. And personally speaking, I am looking forward to that because even though it's not a main focus of the channel, they are still cards. And I have enjoyed, my 2020 Leaf Wrestling cards for my pickups, picking up some select autographs of some wrestling personalities, many of them with an AEW affiliation now. So it's one of those things where having official AEW wrestling cards, I think is going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing what they end up coming out with. And of course, I also will be keeping an eye on that price. I would love to open something related to it, but it's still going to be price dependent. But I'll certainly have my eyes open for any singles and things like that. And we'll have to see what Upper Deck decides to come out with. So that's still a ways away, but we'll have to see. That's a little bit closer to maybe the Fall Expo time period, early November, right around then. So we'll have to see what that ends up looking like. But we'll finish off on this one, a little bit of a light, quote unquote, story coming out of the National. Like I said before, we'll be talking more about this on Friday during the live stream. We'll cut this one off here. And if anything else major comes up, any big announcements or anything out of the National, we'll be able to cover that on Friday. As usual, appreciate any comments or feedback. You're more than welcome to put that in the comments section. Like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you haven't to the channel. We'll be doing a live stream on Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern time like usual. So we'll be hanging out there talking different hobby topics, anything going on. Otherwise, that'll be it for this time around. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.